Mr. Sean, please give a quick background about yourself and, like what was your experience in the previous large credit union company, and then how you transitioned, what's your charter here, and what excites you about ArmorCode?
Oh, absolutely. So traditionally been working with fintech companies, large auditing firms or large CRAs around some of their really challenging and tough security problems. One of the things that really stood out to me around ArmorCode was the concept of continuous compliance. Because those of you that have been in the field for a long time, there's a lot on the AppSec side where, security, we've got great tools, we've got good coverage, pipelines, great processes out there, but not a lot of people always think about the compliance recommendations and requirements for a lot of these. So it could be anything from PCI SOX to some larger framework like NIST or CSF, and being able to tie those in as well as create custom policies for organizations, because you may already have internal policies that may not align to a regime or body outside of the organization, but they're still policies that you want to apply, and then correlating those to your health scores around how your scanning tools are doing, as well as the real-time chat ops capability. I think that was huge, taking a look at the product and kind of comparing a lot of products that are on the market. There's a ton of dashboards out there that you can get, open source information, but not only getting real-time data about your application, but having real-time communication in the context of what you're seeing with the application. So you notice this is a false positive, you drill down to it, you take a look, realize, hey, I want to go ahead and let this pass as an ISO, but I want to also leave a note behind to let them know what we did, why this gets tied into our GRC system updates, and then ultimately communicates back to things like Jira to let the developer know that this bug has been completed and will now pass through the pipeline. You get that entire feedback loop using ArmorCode. You don't have to go to 6 or 7 different tools. And when I think about the burden that we put on our developers when it comes to security, anything that we can keep as native as possible and coalesce as many tools as possible to make it as intuitive as possible for them, the more success that we're going to find in our overall security posture for organizations.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sean, and definitely you hit on something here. So typically, as you mentioned, there are kind of 3 buckets of tools, right? You have a dashboards or application security posture management, and then you have ASOC, which is a little bit of orchestration, and then you have the compliance, right? So as a practitioner and as a global security architect, when you're designing the entire DevSecOps and you have like 20 plus years of experience designing for very large financial organizations, why do you see that these 3 tools need to be integrated, and why this platform approach is kind of better than having that siloed tools, if you will?
Absolutely. So it's a really good question. Something I've been thinking about a lot here lately. I think where ArmorCode wins, where a lot of others don't, is that they give you that entire view of the supply chain. And if you question how valuable a supply chain is, understanding end-to-end and the impact, take a look at what the pandemic has done to us. Take a look at what Colonial Pipelines has done just in a very short time with one of their breaches, right? It takes very little to disrupt an entire supply chain and all of the downstream impacts that you have. So having a tool that can provide that end-to-end view, and then we can tie that back to a business value or body of work that's being done, I think that's immeasurable value for a lot of organizations. And when you talk about most mature Fortune 100 companies are spending 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars in security programs, from OpEx to actual software assets. Having a tool that can bring an immense amount of that value back end and lower the overall cost and lower the overall risk of the organization is a win all the way around for anyone.
Yeah, and one last question here, Sean, and you have been on both the sides, right? Having built a tool in-house, and over here you're considering tool. And a full disclaimer here to the audience here, Sean and TransUnion is not an existing customer. They are kind of seriously considering and exploring, and has been a great partner in providing feedback. So Sean, like being on both the sides where you have built the platform from scratch, and in your new role in this new company where you're looking at out of the box. So can you talk about the total cost of ownership of build versus buy? Like why one should not
Yes.
build this platform, something like this in-house?
Yes. So I have been with companies in the past who have built the entire platform. And I'll tell you where it happens is when you talk to a business about where the value is going to come from these toolings that we buy, there's a very big difference between implementing a tool and operationalizing the tool, right? So it's very easy to say, hey, as an engineer, I can build this. I know what we need to do. I know how we need to connect it. I know how to do the APIs. But then when you layer on, what business increment of value are we delivering, as well as what security context and attack surfaces are we creating or reducing using these, you look at all these bits and pieces part and parcel together versus purchasing an actual large body of software. It's really OpEx versus CapEx in some respects, but I can tell you where most companies break down with this build versus buy is the fact of all of the integration that it takes. DevSecOps, software development, period, is immensely complex, right? You've got 20 or 30 tools, plus your pipeline, plus your security audits that are happening. As you said, there's compliance and a lot of other elements that are manual processes that we have auditors come in, take a look. We also have to be able to justify the bodies of work that we're delivering. And when you kind of piece all this stuff together, all of those individual separations of duty, if you will, speaking in security terms, can add up to a real insurmountable amount of complexity that even if you do manage to build it, you can't sustain it, right? And that's where I think ArmorCode is really shining in some of the reviews that I've done, is if you look at the breadth of integrations with first-class tools in the market, even some more obscure tools and a lot of open source, and the ability to even create APIs within that platform to integrate things out of the box that may not already be there. That's huge, because a lot of tooling we have to select based on what integrations are available. And with ArmorCode, it's been a much larger body to be able to say, hey, these already connect. These are the average tools that you're going to find in most security pipelines, most business CI/CD pipelines. So there's not a lot of work to be done. There's no PSO or special bodies of work we have to bring contractors in to plug this stuff up together. So that's really where a lot of the value versus that build versus run comes in.
No, thanks, Sean. And like during this journey, right? Yeah, we've gone from 30 to 60 integrations as of yesterday, and we have really built an integration machine. So thanks. Yeah, no, thanks, Sean.